Okay, Dina and Moses, is that okay? All right. Thank you, lady and gentlemen. Uh, just to give us a brief of what we discussed yesterday, we discussed sexual health, and we also discussed issues regarding our sexual orientations. And we, at the end, at our last discussion, we were able to discuss determinants of our sexual health. It was more of an interactive session, and we had different people mentioning some of the causes or some of the determinants of sexual health in their communities. And we were able to share some of the different challenges that we have. If I'm just to share with you my slide in a minute, we discussed social issues, we discussed religious issues, we discussed cultural issues as being some of the determinants, but also we discussed biological issues that when someone is born before even birth, from the fetal development, an individual is able to get orientation about their sexuality. And we were able to also discuss the brain's impact or your mental impact on your who are born male would need a trigger of testosterone levels being high in order for them to realize their male self. And for women, we need progesterone and we need estrogen as some of the hormones that help us trigger our different orientations. But also, we discussed that our social environment helps us determine our nature as in terms of sexual orientation. That if we're an individual who grows up in a homosexual environment, there are chances that they will grow up having homosexual characteristics. However, I stated that in our African context, majority of our societies are more of heterosexual in that you cannot have attraction to a fellow sex related person, that a female cannot have attraction to a fellow female, and that a male cannot have an attraction to a male. And these are the things that shape our sexual health. And we also discussed that there were different theories that have come up to associate our sexual health, but also they help us to determine our sexual orientation. We talked about the Sigmund Freud theory of the psychoanalytic theory that an individual's ego, subconscious mind, helps an individual to determine how they relate in terms of sexuality. And therefore, it is important that even when we are discussing further sexual health as a module, that you keep your grip or you keep your mental state onto these key issues. Before we discussed what we had yesterday, we had various terms, but also we discussed a lot of issues that are surrounding sexual health in our communities, including issues of discrimination, a lot of issues that affect our sexual health. And it is important that as students, but also as pioneers of sexual health, you keep some of these issues in your fingertips. And or whenever time you're discussing issues related to sexual health, it is very important that you keep these issues. We also talked about perspective, and we were able to realize that these are issues that relate with how someone's thoughts about Before Sam, before you joined in, I was just giving a brief of what we discussed yesterday, and then I was giving a description of what menstrual periods are, or what we mostly call as menstruation. That is where I reached. I had started giving them what happens in the menstrual cycle, because I had earlier discussed that because the cause of menstruation is that the female reproductive organ releases from the fallopian tubes an egg we call ovum, which is supposed to be fertilized. But however, if it does not find a sperm that is supposed to fertilize it, then it dies off, and it is released off the female reproductive organ. So I was just at the point of discussing the menstrual hygiene, I mean the menstrual cycle. So if you're able to see that figure, what we call the menstrual cycle, it is labeled from 1 to 7, and it shows the process through which menstruation occurs. And the first day of the actual cycle starts where you're seeing on your left middle arm, you're able to see 1, and it shows that this is menstruation. The first day of the actual cycle is starting. And in number 2, you see the ovule starts to mature. So what happens is that before the first menstruation occurs, you're seeing the egg released from the fallopian tube. Are you seeing a lot of some dots around number 1? There are a lot of dots. It is actually showing you what happens. In the uterus there, it is having a photographic representation. So when you go to number 2, the ovule starts to mature. Now, when the ovule matures, it is expected that an individual uh, is getting fertile and should be able to conceive. At number 3, the inner lining of the uterus uh, gets thicker, because it is expecting that there is going to be a process of fertilization. So it has to get thicker in preparation that there is going to be a fetus that occurs. However, in waiting for all this in vain, uh, there is an ovulation process. Uh, and unfortunately, uh, this occurs before. What we're calling as ovulation is the releasing of the ovum. I- At the early stages, we're seeing the the cycle starting, but the ovum is the menstruation period has not yet started. We're seeing that at stage 4 is when ovulation occurs and the egg is released through the fallopian tube uh, into the uterus. At stage 5, you're able to see the inner lining of the uterus continuing to thicken because it is expecting that there's going to be what? That there's going to be a fertilization process that occurs at stage 5. However, when you reach stage 6, if fertilization does not occur, the ovule will dissolve. So, however, this first stage is talking about menstruation. It seems that this first illustration could be having challenges with it. But from the start, what happens is that the ovule starts to mature at stage 2, the one you're seeing from the fallopian tube. If you're able to see the figure 2, it is showing you that the ovule is starting to mature. And when it reaches the third number, then the uterus starts to dissolve, to have a lining which is in preparation for fertilization. When this lining occurs and it gets thicker, the fallopian tubes here release an egg. However, among twins, they release two eggs. What happens among twins is that at stage 4, during ovulation, there are two eggs that are released off the two fallopian tubes that are there. However, this figure is showing one fallopian tube. So what happens is that in the inner lining of when the inner lining of the uterus continues to thicken, as the egg is released, at stage 6, if it realizes that fertilization or no sperm is fertilizing it, then it is able to release its lining, the lining that was thickened in preparation for fertilization is then released, and that is what causes menstruation. I hope that is clear. The figure is a little confusing at the actual stage because it mentions a menstruation as a first stage. However, it is trying to explain how menstruation starts from the maturation of the ovule to until the secretion of the lining. I hope that one is well understood.
Yes.
Yes. And so when you understand the entire cycle of menstruation, one from the maturity of the ovule up to the secretion of the lining, we very well know that the lining already contains an egg that was expecting a sperm to fertilize it. However, it is not fertilized because the woman or the individual has not undergone fertilization, possibly because they have not had a sexual intercourse, or because they have not had. We know of artificial ways of fertilization. So, in case the individual or the woman does not undergo any of these stages of fertilization, the higher chances are that they will have their menstrual periods. However, in cases that the woman has fertilization, either through artificial insemination or through having contact with a man's sperm, there are higher chances that they will not see their menstrual periods. One, because the inner lining that is there will not be secreted as it is protecting the inborn child. Those are the phases of the menstrual cycle. The menstrual phase is the first phase, and it's the shedding of the uterine lining that occurs as a result of in form of a menstrual bleeding. As we've seen from the cycle, if fertilization does not occur, then the lining is shaded, and that is what we call the menstrual phase. Then we have the follicular phase, maturing phase, or the preparedness of the fallopian tube to release an egg, and that is why it is called follicular. It picks its name from the fallopian tube. We have the ovulation period. This is the time the egg is released from the fallopian tube, and it travels all the way into the uterus of the woman, and this is the ovulation period. Most times, this is what women say about, they commonly refer to it about their fertile period, because during this period, it is when a woman is extremely fertile, and in many cases, very many women uh, are triggered uh, both hormonally in terms of their hormones being active, because the body feels that they should be carrying uh, a reproductive activity. And many cases, this is when women develop a high temperature. That is why there are different ways in which women determine when they are fertile and they are not. For those who are well versed with the calendar method, this is a period that your beads are white, and there are 5 days approaching to the menstrual period, because before the 5 days, a woman is extremely fertile, and can conceive in case they are in contact with a male sperm. So we have the luteal phase. The empty follicle develops into a corpus luteum, which produces progesterone to support a potential pregnancy. Now, at this stage, this is a hormonal stage that triggers from what we discussed yesterday from the brain, that produces progesterone, because you are approaching your menstrual, or because you are approaching the stage when the fallopian tube is releasing eggs, and therefore it produces this progesterone to support expected potential. Means in this case that you are expecting a pregnancy. By the mere fact that you're releasing an egg, you're expecting a pregnancy. And therefore, at this stage, your body or your mind is preparing for the potential pregnancy. And therefore, it releases what we call the progesterone, so that it can ease your conception rate. So when this progesterone is released, therefore, it helps to function the development or the maturing process of the ovum. And through the maturing process of the ovum, you're able to release the ovum through the fallopian tube into the uterus. And if you're able to get a male sperm, then you're able to fertilize. However, if you're not able to get a male sperm, then no fertilization takes place, and thereafter your menstrual cycle starts. Uh, the next is the hormonal changes during your menstrual cycle. Estrogen and progesterone levels fluctuate through the menstrual cycle. These are changes that happen when estrogen and progesterone levels fluctuate. We most times realize issues of mood swings among women, and this is the cause. There's also the follicle stimulating hormone and the luteinizing hormone. Now, these regulate the maturation and the release of the egg. The interplay between these hormones happen because you're a potential pregnancy case. The body expects that at the time of menstruation, you're able to develop a male sperm, We're looking at the estrogen rising during the follicle phase, follicle, meaning that estrogen levels are high because they help in thickening the uterine lining. Because you're expecting that you're going to be pregnant, then the estrogen levels are rising so that they help you in thickening the uterine of the woman. But also the progesterone they increase during this luteal phase because they support the potential pregnancy. And these are key roles that these hormones play uh, in the menstrual cycle, or during the hormonal changes. These are the hormonal changes that occur in the expectation of the pregnancy. So we have the premenstrual syndrome. Now, the premenstrual syndrome refers to a combination of physical and emotional symptoms that occur before menstruation. I already talked about what they call mood swings. Now, the common symptoms that occur include mood swings, bloating, breast tenderness, fatigue, and irritability. Most men always say during pregnancy that their women are harsh on them. Now, this is where the issues occur from. As a result of the premenstrual syndrome, uh, because of the secretion of those hormones that we have discussed, majority of the women they are always showcasing these symptoms you're seeing here. They have mood swings, they have bloating, they have breast tenderness, fatigue, and they are easily irritated. However, managing PMS or the premenstrual syndrome is important because case, including mood swings. Therefore, it is very important that we advocate for these changes. We should be engaging our pregnant women into regular diet. Our colleague who was talking about sexual health and nutrition, this is where you're very critical, and it is very important in influencing a woman's mood swings. There is another important issue that occurs, that is the abnormal uterine bleeding. Now, this refers to the irregular, heavy, or prolonged menstrual bleeding that occurs in women. There are different causes of abnormal uterine bleeding, and these include hormonal imbalances, uterine fibroids, polyps, infections, or certain medication. However, we might be aware or we might not be aware of the major causes of hormonal imbalances. Now, some of the hormonal imbalances occur because of the modern contraceptives we use, including the implants, and because these are These are methods that interact with an individual's hormonal system. For example, an individual who injected an implant or a 5 year Jadela would have some hormonal imbalances as a side effect. Some of the women have reported growing fat, and some of them have reported having a high bleeding during their menstrual hygienes, a lot of clots. Now, these are some of the key causes of hormonal imbalances. However, the complications of abnormal understood what menstrual uh, periods or what the menstrual cycle contains, menstrual health refers to the physical, mental, and social well being that is related to menstruation. Just as sexual health, this is about understanding the physical, mental, and social well being of women having their rights to discuss, but also rights free of discrimination regarding issues of menstruation. This is what comes out with. And it is similar to what we were discussing about sexual health. Now, menstrual hygiene refers to the practices menstrual safely and hygienically. They are essential to our overall hygiene, and they prevent infections. All these issues are being influenced by one, our societies, but also by our attitudes and our thoughts about menstrual health. That is what this slide is discussing about. Menstrual health encompasses various aspects. These include hygiene, the management of the symptoms, and addressing any underlying menstrual disorders. Maintaining a good menstrual health is important, and it is important, one, because it is part and parcel of our sexual health, especially as women, but also they affect your sexual intimacy. Now, many social taboos do not allow men to engage in menstruation of a female or as of a woman. And why menstrual health is very important is because it affects every individual in this way. As a woman, it affects you in terms of discomfort, but also as a man, it affects you in terms of the cultural taboos that you're not supposed to engage into a sexual act throughout your menstrual times.
Yes, Mr.
Now, open communication, understanding, and mutual respect
Sorry,
during menstrual periods.
sorry, you can reshare your
Someone is
screen.
talking.
It's me, Samuel.
You're not. Someone is not seeing.
I'd gone off. I just joined again. can reshare the screen
Let
again.
me, let me okay. Let me share with you. And I was discussing about the factors that affect menstrual health and hygiene. Uh, we're talking about biological factors. These are hormonal changes, menstrual disorders, and reproductive health conditions. Kindly, you could give me a few minutes, then I get back to you just in a second here. Yes, we were talking about the factors that are affecting menstrual health and hygiene. So we're looking at biological factors, social factors, and cultural factors. Just as sexual health, the factors that are affecting menstrual health are similarly the same. Hormonal changes, menstrual disorders, and reproductive health conditions are the biological surrounding menstruation affect menstrual health. We very well know that culturally there are people who believe that when a woman has a menstrual period, then the woman is mature. We also know that because a woman has has menstrual periods, men look at them as lower beings. But we also know there's social stigma surrounding menstruation. And as being spiritually unclean. Now, these are social factors that affect menstruation. We also look at our cultural beliefs. You and I know that there are negative cultural beliefs, traditions, and taboos about menstruation. However, some of these beliefs and traditions or taboos they affect our sexual interaction as men. That our cultures have taboos about a man having a relationship during their menstruation period. So it is very critical that we have a look at how these taboos or our culture impacts on our menstrual health. Another factor we're looking at is the environmental factors. We're looking at access to clean water, sanitation facilities, and appropriate menstrual products. We are very well much aware that many of our girls are dropping out of school because laughing at them, but also because when a girl realizes that there is no sanitation facility in terms of going to bathe after having a menstrual secretion, then the girl may not be able to come back to school. We do not have enough sanitary pads, especially for rural people. These products, menstrual products, we know that a pad is very expensive. The one that is single use is very expensive. And therefore, when a girl is unable to afford a disposable pad because she's using a rewashable pad and there is no sanitation facility, then the girl is dropping out of school or the girl is moving away from whatever she's doing because of these different factors. So these factors are categorized into four, but we very well know that they are very in between these four categories. There are so many different underlying factors that affect menstrual hygiene. What is menstrual hygiene management? And what does a proper menstrual hygiene management contain? Proper menstrual hygiene management is crucial for maintaining physical comfort, preventing infections, and promoting sexual health. Now, because this is secretion of blood, hygiene is very key in managing menstrual hygiene, and because of the reality of blood being secreted, if this is not managed in a proper phase, there is most times the development of reproductive health related infections. And for us to manage our menstrual hygiene, especially among women, it is crucial that we maintain hygiene. And this is what this slide is talking about. It is important that the females use menstrual products, including pads, tampons. We need menstrual cups or reusable cloth pads, and changing them regularly is very essential in managing our in managing our menstrual hygiene. Because if you do not change your pads regularly, there are chances that you may continue to develop infections as a result of the smell. But also socially, boys may be running away from you because of the smell that comes out from not replacing your pads. This is very important because in public health, we've had a lot of issues of urinary tract infections, but also we've had a lot of reproductive health infections around the female genital because most of the girls do not have a menstrual hygiene. So it is important when we are implementing projects for those who work with the communities that you highlight issues of menstrual health because they are very important in helping to address UTIs, but also they are very important in having to control infections to men. Because when you have intercourse with a woman uh, who is not hygienic during her or after her menstrual periods, there are chances that you may also develop some infections. What are the menstrual products that we're talking about? We're talking about the disposable pads. These are absorbents where they keep absorbing or they keep sucking your the releases that the menstruation period, when the menstruation period is going on. These are pads that keep absorbing or they keep draining off the menstrual wastes that occur. And when we're talking about using menstrual products, it is very key because they help us in maintaining hygiene. We're talking about tampons, the cylindrical devices made of absorbent materials that are inserted into the vagina to collect menstrual flow. And we've seen this common in many developed world where people do not normally use pads, and they are most importantly using they are most importantly using they are most importantly using these tampons because it is an easier way of collecting your menstrual wastes, and it is more hygienic. There are also menstrual cups. These are reusable and they are inserted into the vagina just to collect the menstrual blood. So when you realize that your flow is on, you just push in this menstrual cup and it's able to collect all the menstrual blood. There's also the period underwear. which is built with the absorbent layers to absorb menstrual flow. And you can be able to remove it after, and you're able to wash it, and you're able to reuse it. Another menstrual period, product is the disposable pads we've talked about, but it also has the pros and cons. So when you're talking about the pros and cons of the menstrual products, we're talking about the easy to use. And we know that these disposable pads are widely spread, and they are easily usable. So the con is that, or the disadvantage is that it generates wastes and needs frequent changing. So you cannot use this disposable pad for about 2 to 3 times. You can only use it once, and you'll be able to change it accordingly. Then there are tampons. It is convenient, and they allow physical activity. Unlike some of the products, some of these the tampons, they are more convenient, and during your physical activity you can be able to use them. The disadvantage is that it is associated with toxic shock syndromes that require proper insertion. So when you're doing insertion of these tampons, you must be having a medical personnel, or you must be having prior knowledge into inserting these tampons, and that is why it is a disadvantage. So if you do not have the knowledge to insert these tampons, it becomes a little harder for you to insert this. Then another particular thing we're looking at is menstrual cups. Environmentally friendly. This is the advantage of the menstrual cups, that environmentally it is friendly. The disadvantage is that it requires insertion and removal, which may not be suitable for everyone. And this requires that you have knowledge about insertion of menstrual cups. What about the period underwear? We're looking at reusable, leak resistant, and maybe it is less absorbent for heavy flows. Now, heavy flows occur according to dependent on your use of a family planning method. Individuals who use modern family planning, they might be having heavy flowers. So therefore, using a period underwear might be extremely hard for them. And they may be used to using disposable pads, because when the flow starts and you've got your first release of flows, you will have to change it. But if you're using a period underwear, you will have to constantly change it if you have a heavy flow. This is what occurs in there. What are the safe and healthy practices? Now, practicing good hygiene, such as washing hands before and after handling menstrual products, can help prevent infections and ensure overall sexual health. This is very key, and it is a message we are not only preaching to scholars, but it is also a message that you scholars should be able to preach to your society, but also to your students, or your family members, or your friends. Now, because of the fact that menstruation occurs as an impact or as an effect of the releasing of the lining, there are chances that that lining may be having infections, or they can cause infections. So it is very key that we have a way of maintaining a healthy practice into good menstrual health, and this is important through washing our hands. Now, before we go to our next discussion, do we have any questions regarding these slides we have shared? because I can see we have virtually exhausted our time. If we can proceed, or we can start from there tomorrow, because I also understand for the past 2 days we've been going beyond our time. So I don't know what the suggestion is, or we can also proceed from there from tomorrow. However, if you have any questions from the 15 slides that I've shared, it is important that you raise them at this point, so that we can see if we can continue up to the next slides, because they are quite about many of them. We may not be able to exhaust them in the next few hours. So I don't know what the suggestion is. Do you have any questions for the start? Do you have any questions?
Yes, yes.
Yes, please.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for this precise and a wonderful lecture on the menstrual
It's recorded.
hygiene or the menstrual health. My simple question based on the
It's
regarding
still
the
recording.
also the menstrual patterns, including also the pain. Or some people also experience pain when they are going through the menstrual flow. So these are the questions normally the community asks, and sometimes when you are not medical personnel, it's not easy for someone to explain. So I want to know the physiology behind that, and secondly, the menstrual management or hygiene become a challenge mostly in our community. Let me say that in the village, I said let me mention in the village, find that. Women or ladies, they don't have access to this the menstrual and sometimes contribute to the school dropout amongst girls in those locations.
Yes, yes.
And maybe my main concern is because we need to see into the legal framework whereby we can make this the agent, the menstrual agent, available to each and everyone in the community, more especially those who are living in deep in a village, because you know sex is actually a choice, but menstrual period, it is a physiology of a body which is normally an individual undertake. So that mean that we need to make sure that uh, if we can sell condom is fine, but the part has to be distributed freely. So this is what I just wanted to say on the issue of the menstrual hygiene. Thank you.
And that is a very insightful discussion from Thomas. Do we have any other questions? Any other individual who has a question regarding to what we have discussed before I answer what Thomas has said? Yes, Dina, your hand is up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I wanted you to talk again about the menstrual products because you mentioned something of the cup and like I want to understand how long does it like stay there once it is being fixed? Like just something like that.
Okay. Uh, Rose, your hand is up.
Okay, thank you for giving
Yes,
me this
Rose.
chance. Yeah, I would like to know something. This is a perception in the community concerning when one want to give birth maybe to a boy or girl. In most cases, people say that you can use the calendar method or using the menstrual cycle. studying how it is like when one is almost to ovulate. Like for example, when a woman is like having the 28 cycle days, so if you want to conceive like a boy, that means you're supposed to like meet within the 14 days. So I don't know if that one is true or not true. I would like to know more about it. And then concerning the other second question is not actually a question, but I would like to know more about the follicular phase and the because I was
Okay.
not well versed with it from the beginning.
Rose, kindly ask that question again. The last
The
question
fact,
you are asking. Yes.
okay, the last question is not a question, but I would like to know more
Kindly,
clarification on the follicular phase and the luteal phase based on the hormonal changes.
all right.
Yeah.
So to start with what Thomas was asking, one, he was giving an idea of the community's perception and how menstrual hygiene or menstruation affects young girls being in school. Now, as public health experts, it is very important for you to understand what we call the menstrual hygiene and the entire cycle through which menstruation occurs. And the first session that I took you through is very important in understanding how menstrual hygiene occurs. If I got his question right, I just wanted to ask it. I just wanted to answer it in a more African way because I know what it means. You know, the challenge with our society is that, like you said, Thomas, that sex is a choice, but menstruation for women is not a choice, and it is very critical. And the solution we have is to discuss with young girls and women issues regarding their menstrual health. The most important project you could do to save your young girls from absconding going to school is that you should be giving them the knowledge and the information on sexual health, especially on menstrual health. Because when they have this information, it will be key for them to be able to understand that this is a natural issue. As Africans, our parents have always not been able to tell us key information on our menstrual health. Now, if you openly discussed issues of menstrual health, having understood how menstrual health occurs, how every other month that the body is able to release an ovum that travels through the fallopian tube into your uterus. And when it realizes that you have not had a sexual intercourse and there's no sperm to fertilize the lining that has thickened is released through, and it is called the menstruation period. Then the young girls will be able to understand. However, when this menstruation, before this menstruation occurs, as Rose was saying, there are different phases through which the body goes, or the body goes through different phases. And these phases are discussed as I stated before, that there's a stage where the body is releasing an egg. We were looking at a stage where your progesterone or your estrogen levels are increasing. Why do your estrogen levels increase? Because they are stimulating or they are thickening your uterine lining. Why does the progesterone as a hormone increase? Because they are expecting that at the end of the month, a woman, or that 28-month days period, a woman is potentially going to become pregnant. And what we know in Africa, or from the studies that have been done, a woman's fertility period is determined by their feeding pattern. Is why before the whites or our laws in Africa are saying that maturity is at the age of 18, but we have seen exceptional cases of girls who are producing or who are conceiving at the age of 13. So when a woman starts experiencing menstruation, the body is virtually or is actually just expecting that there's going to be a possibility of a pregnancy. And when we're talking about issues about the follicular phase, now this is the time when the follicles in the ovary mature. In that, they are maturing. That follicle, what I was calling the fallopian tube, it contains follicles in there. And when the follicle phase is that the fallopian tube is expecting the release of an egg from the very many eggs the discussing as a menstrual uh, cycle. I don't know if in that explanation I've answered majority of the questions. Thomas, did I answer your question?
As one we think you using a full period.
Painful, yes. Now, very of research, the the nutritionist is here. If the nutritionist is here, research has shown that our nutrition levels determine the level of hormones that are. Now, what happens is that in women during menstrual periods, progesterone is being released. However, the quantity is determined by your feeding pattern. Now, what happens is that in majority of our women, the feeding pattern is junk, and they feed a lot of food that does not produce progesterone levels of the hormone. Now, what happens is that because you're eating food that relatively does not produce enough hormonal secretion to manage pain of your periods, therefore, what happens is that you experience a lot of pain because you have less secretion of progesterone hormones. Take an example. When you have painful periods, what happens is that you're being encouraged. A lot of researchers encourage people to take water because when you take water, it helps improve the production of the progesterone and testosterone hormones in men. So progesterone in females and testosterone in males. So what occurs is that because of our feeding pattern or because of our diets, because of less physical activity, then as a woman you have less hormones being secreted, and therefore that affects the level of handling menstrual cycles. And that is where the difference is. However, that is why you're realizing that in women who do physical exercise, you realize they will tell you that their menstrual periods are less painful. However, we have also seen that women who are using modern contraceptives have got higher chances of having painful menstrual cycles. Why? Because these cause hormonal imbalances. So when you have hormonal imbalances in terms of you may be having less secretion of progesterone. And therefore, if you have an imbalance of less progesterone, then there are chances that you will experience heavy bleeding and heavy pains in your menstrual period. However, if you have higher chances of or higher levels of secretion of progesterone, then you will experience less painful and less heavy flow of periods. What happens is that this is determined according to sometimes your body size. So in women who might be well weighed, they may experience less because they may have less hormonal imbalances. You get it, Thomas. So those are the factors
Yeah, yeah, I
that
got it.
may yes that may affect the painful or periods in an individual. Yes, Rose. Yes, Rose. Did I answer your question, Rose?
I think she asked one of the question about the determinant of the sex, whether maybe we wanted to have a boy, what can you do, and all this.
Oh,
I, yeah,
yes.
that's one of the
Now,
questions.
yes. Now that is good, John. Yes. Now, we very well know that those are myths, and those are and myths are just imaginations our societies have without scientific proof. But we very well know that male or female are the true determinants of the sex of a child, because a female or I mean a man carries both the X and Y chromosome, and the when if we were to take you to the chromosome lecture, we may have an entire discussion regarding chromosomes. But just to cut it short, we very well know that if a man released an X to meet with the woman who is just a carrier of one gender, then it is the man who is the determinant of the sex of the child, because he carries both chromosomes X and Y. So what happens is that uh, studies have shown that a man who releases heavy sperm count, there are higher chances that he will produce a male, and a man who releases less heavier sperm counts will produce a female. One, because it depends on your testosterone levels. Higher testosterone levels, according to studies, have shown that have more male chromosomes. How do you increase your testosterone levels? Through physical exercise and so forth. So women, I mean male, who have less exercise levels, there are chances that they do not have high testosterone levels, and therefore it simply means they are less active individuals, and the chances of producing females is very high. And therefore, issues to deal with the menstruation or approaching menstruation, determining the sex of your baby, are myths, and they do not have scientific proof. What is very important, the determinant of the sex of your child is actually the man. So it is very important that you advocate that your men are very active. If you're to look around your society, or you do activities around your society and see male who are physically active, you can practically see that they have more male in their families. One, because their testosterone levels grow up as they exercise their bodies. And men who are more docile and very inactive in terms of physical exercise. I'm not talking about indoor exercises. I'm talking about physical exercise. Who are more inactive have higher chances of producing releasing female sperms. One, because the female sperms, we know from our studies on spermatology that male sperms travel longer distances than the female sperm. And therefore, if the man is very indocile, that is very docile in terms that he is very inactive, there are chances that he will release weaker sperm that cannot travel a longer
Yeah.
distance, and therefore there will be female sperm. Rose, do I answer your question? John, have I answered Rose's question?
Yeah, I think so. But
Uh,
she can also explain whether she get it clear.
so, Rose, kindly answer if I have explicitly answered your
Yeah,
question
it's okay. Though my
as we
network was
conclude.
not all that stable, but I appreciate everything. Anyway.
Okay. Uh, Sam, I think we've been caught short of time, and it is high time we concluded the lecture so that we can start from the phases of, from where we've stopped tomorrow.